As much as a 540-inch big block Chevy needs a tunnel ram, you know what it needs even more? Boost. In this video, we're going to add the one thing that every big block needs, and that is boost. In fact, we're going to add more than one kind of boost. We're going to add 2 different kinds of boost, and before that, we're even going to add some nitrous. This is actually part 3 of our 540-inch big block Chevy build series. Back in part 1 and 2, we took a 540-inch Dart SHP short block and subjected it first in part 1. You can check that video out right here. We did a mild and wild buildup. And then in part 2, and if you haven't seen that, make sure to check it out. That video is right here. We took a look at 3 different tunnel rams. On this video, we actually had to remove the tunnel ram, which I know what you guys are thinking. Hey, but that's a step in the wrong direction. Yes, but we're taking another step in the right direction. First, by adding nitrous, which is always good, and by adding boost. First from a 871 supercharger, then from a big VORTEC centrifugal supercharger. Let's check it out. Back in part 1 of this 3-part series, we subjected our 540-inch big block Chevy first to a mild and wild combination. Check out those. If you haven't, check out part 1. And then in part 2, we did a trio of tunnel ram carburetors, running a YN and then a pair of Dart tunnel rams. But now we had to revert back to our single 4-barrel combination to actually run nitrous on this thing. And the reason was because I didn't want to run 2 kits on a tunnel ram, although it will definitely add lots of power if you do that. Now we could either jet it down to run the amount of nitrous that we ran on this single 4-barrel, or run twice as much as we ran here and get bigger gains, which you can also do. But I didn't want to run a ton of nitrous on this thing because we had yet to run the blowers on it, and I wanted to make sure, obviously, we didn't want to hurt anything on this motor. Not that I think we could have hurt it from a strength standpoint, but we could have hurt it from a stupidity standpoint on my part, and that could certainly happen. So what we did was reconfigure this thing. We took the tunnel ram off. We put the single 4-barrel, the YN Team G, on there with the 4500 1050 Dominator on, where this thing made 770 horsepower and 662 or 3 foot-pounds of torque. So this was with the Dominator carburetor. So what we did was install a Dominator plate nitrous system from the guys at NOS, and we configured it with, we did a little bit of testing with this thing, but we configured it eventually with a 97 nitrous jet and a 91 fuel jet. Now obviously, because we were running nitrous, we also retarded the timing, and in this case we retarded the timing by 9 degrees. We also did a little tuning on the fuel supply. In addition to the jetting, we actually turned, we have a dedicated fuel supply to the nitrous system that's independent of what we're supplying to the carburetor. So we turned the fuel supply, the pressure on the fuel supply side to the nitrous down to about a little under 5 pounds, about 4.75 pounds. We were just doing a little trimming of the fuel because it was a little on the rich side. So we added this plate system. Made sure, as we always do, VORTEC has a bottle heater. It's basically a water bath that you can stick the bottle in and it heats the thing up evenly, unlike doing it with a torch, which obviously is not always a good idea. So we heated the bottle up to the right temperature, had the right pressure in there, the bottle was full. We did everything that we could to make sure that our supply of nitrous to our nitrous setup was optimized. And here's what happened after we applied nitrous with that nitrous jetting. Power output jumped a lot from our 770 horsepower all the way up to 1,022, although that's kind of the activation spike there. And it settled into, 1,000 and even dropped down a little bit below 1,000 horsepower. But it was easy to get to 4-digit numbers with the nitrous. Like I said, we call that the easy button. The gains were nice and consistent. And we took a lot of timing out to make sure that we were safe, because we could probably run this thing a little spicier and run it with more timing. And we could, and I want you guys to make a comment, because one of the comments I'm sure I'm going to get, and I want to know how many I'm going to get, is why did you engage this thing so late? Why didn't you engage it early? And you can engage it all the way down at 4,000 RPM, and what you get is this kind of consistent gain all the way across the power curve, and we've done that stuff a lot. But this was actually Steve Brule just engaged it late, show us what's happened, ran the nitrous, everything worked good, and then we had to take this thing off immediately and start putting blower stuff on it. But this is what the nitrous did. It works well. Nitrous does work well. This was kind of a, hit the button, get big power, take it off, put on the boost. Let's check out our blowers. After subjecting our 540-inch big block Chevy to nitrous, which as I call is the easy button, you push the button and good things happen, we were going to add some boost, and we did it in two ways. First of which, an 871 root supercharger from the guys over at the blower shop. 871 is a good size for a 540-inch motor. Now we have other tests, and I have other videos up where we ran 671 blowers, and that thing is really good for stuff like maybe in the 1,000 horsepower or less range. But on this 540-inch motor, especially one that already made over 800 horsepower, the 871 would probably be a better choice. And especially if we were trying to maximize the power output, which we were not. We didn't even run a lot of boost on this. We just wanted to demonstrate what would happen if a guy like this would be a good boat application. You put an 871 on this 540-inch motor. It's low compression. It has a healthy cam and obviously good cylinder heads on it. And if you put a dual carb 871 on there, perfect for like a jet boat or something. This thing would be awesome. Low compression. You'd have plenty of cooling from the carburetors. It's cool. It's cold because it's running in a lake, and it would be a good boat motor. So that's kind of what I was envisioning for this 871 buildup. So what we did is we have our 540-inch motor with our Dart Pro 1s and our roller cam, and this is with the single 4-barrel the same way that we ran it with the nitrous. And the reason I chose that as our baseline is because I know we made more power, especially with the ported Dart tunnel ram back in part 2, but none of these combinations, none of these blower combinations got the benefit of running with the tunnel ram. It would be kind of cool, but it's a little bit harder to set up, especially with a dual quad. I don't have a, we would need 2 elbows and and hats to make that work. So it'd be a lot more problematic. So what we did was we just ran it with a single 4-barrel later on with the VORTEC, and we're just using this as the comparison for the 871 supercharger, which runs its own lower intake manifold. So here's what happened when we added our 871. And this was run on race gas. It was run at 30 degrees of total timing. And right here it was run with a pulley combination, a 50-tooth blower pulley and a 55-tooth crank pulley. So run with that configuration, that made a peak of 8.3 pounds, and it produced nearly 1,000 horsepower, 996 horsepower. Peak torque checked in at 836. But the thing that seemed odd is this dip in the power curve here after 6,500 RPM. The curve was going up the way that I expected and the way that all of the other roots blowers that I've ever run, because they all have short runner manifolds, and the blower is providing boost. We had a slightly rising boost curve, which we would expect at this displacement and power output, but we had a dip here. The timing was consistent, the air fuel was consistent, there was nothing going on with the carburetors, and I can't really answer that. What we did was, because it's a blower, we changed the pulley to add more boost, obviously to cure this, but it didn't cure it all the way. What we did was change the blower pulley size from a 50-tooth pulley to a 46-tooth pulley, and that increased boost by about 2 pounds up to 10.3. We kept timing the same. Here's what happened when we increased the boost level. We got more power, but we still have the same kind of weird drop in power here. And I wanted to let you guys know, what are your thoughts? I don't know. I couldn't figure this out at the time, and I ran this test a while ago. Let me know what you think here. Obviously, the pulley's not slipping because it's a cog belt, so there can be no belt slippage. We had a fairly consistent rising boost curve. Nothing is happening with the timing because the timing is fixed at this point. We have no centrifugal advance in this. It's a locked distributor. So it seemed odd. So let me know what you guys think. Is this a valve float problem? We didn't have any valve float, obviously, on any of the NA runs, and I didn't have valve float on the VORTEC supercharger either, which we ran at a higher boost level. So I don't think it's a boost versus spring thing. Let me know what you guys think. Now let's get to our VORTEC. The final test on our 540-inch big block Chevy after running nitrous and then an 871 root supercharger on the 540 was to add a VORTEC. Now, a VORTEC centrifugal supercharger. This particular one was a Mondo XX, or as we like to call it, the Dos Equis. The centrifugal blower obviously adds a different kind of boost curve and a different kind of power curve than a roots blower does. The roots blower provides immediate boost response and then therefore more torque down low. The centrifugal blower has more of a rising boost curve, so it's a little softer down low, but as we'll see here, it comes on pretty strong at the top. But before we could add the VORTEC supercharger, we had to make a change to our test motor. Now, previously in part 2, if you haven't seen that, you need to check it out, but in part 2, we ran this combination with a couple of different tunnel ram intake manifolds. Now obviously we couldn't run this with a tunnel ram, both of those were dual quads, so we had to remove those and put a single 4-barrel back on. Now we had run this combination previously with a single 4-barrel and a Dominator carburetor, but unfortunately we couldn't even use that intake manifold, which was fairly good. We had to step all the way down to a single 4-barrel, a single plane intake with a 4150 carburetor, and the reason for that was our dedicated blow-through carburetor was a 4150. So the 850 that we had from CSU was a 4150, and it was designed to fit on a 4150 manifold. So if anything, we were starting out at a much lower power level with our baseline motor, but as we'll see, after we installed the supercharger, our Dos Equis, good things would start to happen. So I actually didn't run this thing NA with the small carburetor, because when we put that small 4150 single plane intake manifold on, I just put the CSU carburetor on immediately, and we started to run boost because we'd run this with so many other things already and time was running out. So I installed the Vortec supercharger. We ran it as a blow through. I did not run an intercooler. All of this stuff was run on race gas, just as we did with the 871. So we installed the MONDO supercharger. We can take a look at the power output here. And it was interesting because we used VORTECH, basically their air bonnet. And what it is, it has a big diffuser inside of it that's supposed to even out the airflow distribution into the carburetor and make it so a lot of times these air bonnets are kind of angle specific. They want to be aiming straight back toward the back of the carburetor. They get mixed up when they turn the bonnet sideways. This one didn't really have that problem. So according to the guys at Vortec, we could orient the bonnet any way that we wanted, because when the air went in, it hit this big diffuser inside and helped even out all the airflow into all the jets. So it helped the signaling on the carburetor, and all we could say is that in this combination, it actually worked very well. Because equipped with our Vortec Mondo Dos Equis, this thing made almost 1,200 horsepower. It made 1,198 horsepower, and peak torque checked in at 953 foot-pounds. And this was at a peak boost of about 13 pounds. So it was running more boost than we ran with the 871. But as I said, we were not trying to max out both of these things. Our Dos Equis had more power left. We could certainly spin this thing faster. And the same thing with the 871. If we tried to get absolute, maximum power numbers, both of them would provide more power. But look, a 540-inch motor with a centrifugal blower blowing through a carburetor, easy bolt-on stuff, 1,200 horsepower. I mean, we did almost no tuning on this thing. We put everything on, and it worked fantastic. So 1,200 horsepower, 540-inch big block, nice combination. Let's get to our conclusion. Okay guys, let me know what you think. What did you think about our Power Adder series, our part 3 and our 3-part series on the big block Chevy on our 540-inch Dart SHP short block? We started off part 1 with the mild and wild combinations. Then we followed that up with our tunnel ram comparison. Now in this one, we ran the nitrous and the 2 forms of boost. I like the nitrous. That's what I call the easy button. You put a simple plate on, you add nitrous, you push the easy button, and obviously, as we saw here, good things happen. I also like this test because I got to run 2 forms of force induction, both blowers. I like the big 871 blower, and I also like the Vortec. They obviously do different things. I still don't understand what happened with the 871 at the top of the power curve. So if you guys know, please let me know what you think in the comments. Make a comment. Tell me what was going on. Now the Vortec stuff, easy blow through, big Mondo XX, lots of power. So there's lots of ways to make over 1,000 horsepower with a 540-inch big block Chevy. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Richard Holder. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. And as always, I'll keep testing.